The starship Dominant cut through the darkness of space, its gleaming hull reflecting the distant stars. Commander Tor stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he stared at the main screen. His exoskeleton shimmered with the traditional golden markings of a high-ranking Valoran officer. "Status report," he said, his deep voice carrying across the quiet bridge. "All systems normal, Commander," replied the pilot. "We will reach the edge of charted space in 6 hours." Tor nodded. The Valoran Empire had sent them to map the outer reaches of their territory, a routine mission he had performed many times. For 1,200 years, the Valorans had ruled this sector of the galaxy without challenge. Their biology alone made them superior. Tough exoskeletons that could withstand extreme heat and pressure, strength that could bend metal, and lifespans that stretched for centuries. "Commander," called Science Officer Mira from her station. Her exoskeleton was thinner than most, marked with the blue symbols of the Science Division. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from a yellow star system ahead." Tor walked to her station. "Natural phenomenon." "No," she said, her compound eyes reflecting the light of her screen. "The pattern suggests artificial origin. Primitive, but definitely not natural." This caught Tor's interest. The High Council was always looking for new species to bring into the fold. The Valorans considered it their duty to guide lesser races, to rule them, and protect them, in exchange for resources and labor, of course. "Alter course to investigate," Tor ordered, and informed the High Council. 3 days later, the response came. The High Council was very interested in this discovery and ordered a full investigation of the anomalous star system. Tor called his officers to the command room. Tactical Specialist Dren was the last to arrive, his exoskeleton bearing the scars of many battles. "The Council believes we may have found another primitive species," Tor explained, activating the holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a small yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third planet shows signs of civilization. "Another primitive world to bring into the fold," Dren said with confidence, clicking his mandibles together in anticipation. "Perhaps these creatures will provide better sport than the last 3 species we encountered." The others laughed. The last 3 species the Valorans had conquered had surrendered almost immediately upon seeing Valoran technology. It had been disappointing. "Do not be too eager for battle," Mira cautioned. "We know nothing of these beings yet." "What is there to know?" asked Dren, flexing his powerful arms. "No species has ever stood against the might of the Valoran Empire. These primitives will bow before us like all the others." Tor studied the hologram of the blue-green planet. Something about it stirred his curiosity. "We will observe first," he decided. "Study their communications, their level of technology, their strengths and weaknesses." "And then?" Dren asked. "And then we will show them their place in the natural order of things," Tor replied. "As we always do." The Dominant changed course, heading toward the yellow star. None of the Valorans felt any concern. Why would they? Their civilization had mastered faster than light travel millennia ago. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their bodies could crush stone. As they approached the unremarkable star system, Tor felt only mild curiosity about what kind of simple creatures they would find there. He had no way of knowing that this routine mission would change the Valoran Empire forever, or that the word human would soon send shivers through the exoskeletons of even the bravest Valoran warriors. "Prepare the first contact protocols," Tor ordered. "Let us see what these primitives are made of." He had no idea what he was about to discover. The Dominant entered the outer edge of the solar system, moving slowly to avoid detection. Commander Tor ordered full scans of the third planet, the blue-green world that showed clear signs of civilization. "Report," he demanded, as Mira analyzed the incoming data. "Fascinating," she said, her compound eyes widening. "The planet is teeming with life. The dominant species appears to be bipedal, soft-bodied, and," she paused, rechecking her readings, "remarkably fragile." Dren moved to look at her screen and laughed. These are the beings we detected. They have no natural armor, no extra limbs. They look like larvae. The screen showed images of humans going about their daily lives in cities, driving vehicles, and working in buildings. The Valorans watched with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Their bones would snap under our normal gravity, Mira noted. Their skin offers virtually no protection against even minor impacts. Yet they've built impressive structures and appear to have basic space travel capabilities. Tor studied the images carefully. What about their weapons? Primitive. Dren replied after checking the tactical scans. Chemical explosives, basic projectile weapons. Nothing that could penetrate our ship shields, let alone our exoskeletons. They have a small orbital station, Mira pointed out. It seems to be a scientific outpost with about 6 of their kind on board. Tor made his decision quickly. We will disable their station as a demonstration of our power. It is the traditional first step. Once they understand our superiority, they will be more likely to surrender without unnecessary resistance. The Valoran ship moved closer to Earth, still cloaked from detection. When they reached the orbit of the human space station, Tor gave the order. Disable their station, non-lethal force. We want to make a statement, not start a massacre. A pulse of energy shot from the dominant asterisk, striking the space station. Its power systems failed immediately, leaving it drifting in dark against the backdrop of Earth. Now we wait for their response, Tor said. They will likely attempt communication soon, begging for mercy or offering submission. But the response that came surprised them all. Within hours, multiple spacecraft launched from Earth, heading directly toward the damaged station. These were not diplomatic vessels. They were clearly military in nature, though primitive by Valoran standards. They're launching armed ships, Dren said in disbelief. They should be cowering in fear. Intercept one of their vessels, Tor ordered. Let's examine these creatures up close. The Valorans used their tractor beam to capture a small human scout ship. The 2 humans inside were brought aboard the dominant asterisk for examination. They wore simple protective suits and carried small weapons that the Valorans confiscated easily. In the ship's laboratory, Mira studied the humans with growing fascination. Despite being clearly outmatched, the humans showed no signs of submission. They stood tall, their soft faces set in expressions of defiance. They're so fragile, Mira observed, yet they show no fear. Curious. One of the humans spoke, and the ship's computer translated. We demand to know why you attacked our station. Earth is prepared to defend itself. Dren laughed at this. Defend itself? Against us? With what? Tor stepped forward, towering over the humans. I am Commander Tor of the Valoran Empire. Your planet now falls under our protection and rule. Resistance is pointless, and will only lead to suffering for your kind. The human's response was unexpected. Instead of showing fear, the human smiled. You might want to rethink that position, he said calmly. At that moment, alarms blared throughout the ship. Tor rushed back to the bridge to find chaos. Multiple nuclear explosions had detonated in space near their position, and Earth's militaries had launched hundreds more missiles. Impossible, Dren shouted as the ship shook from a nearby blast. How did they track us? How did they know where to aim? Tor realized his mistake too late. The humans had used the captured scout ship as a beacon, leading their weapons directly to the Valoran vessel. Retreat, Tor ordered. Break orbit and regroup. As the dominant asterisk pulled away from Earth, damaged but intact, Tor stared at the view screen in disbelief. These physically weak creatures had just forced the mighty Valoran Empire to retreat. The High Council must be informed, he said quietly. These humans, they are unlike any species we have encountered before. The dominant asterisk limped through space, its hull scorched from multiple nuclear blasts. Commander Tor stood in the communication chamber, facing the holographic images of the High Council. Their compound eyes glowed with anger. You retreated? The head counselor's voice was cold. From primitives. They responded with unexpected tactics, Tor explained. Their nuclear weapons, while primitive, were deployed in ways we did not anticipate. Excuses, another counselor hissed. For 12 centuries, no species has forced a Valoran ship to retreat. This is unacceptable. Tor lowered his head. I understand, counselors. But these humans are different. They lack physical strength, yet they fight with cunning and show no fear. The head counselor leaned forward. This changes nothing. The Valoran Empire does not tolerate resistance. A battle fleet will be dispatched immediately. Admiral Vex will take command. You will remain as advisor. Commander Tor, since you have experience with these creatures. The hologram faded, leaving Tor alone with his thoughts. He had been effectively demoted. More concerning was the assignment of Admiral Vex to lead the fleet. Vex was known for his brutality and had little interest in studying new species, only conquering them. 3 days later, Tor stood on the bridge of the *Dominant* as the Valoran battle fleet arrived. 12 massive warships, each capable of destroying a small moon, emerged from hyperspace. Admiral Vex's flagship, the Conqueror dwarfed them all. Vex summoned Tor to his command center, a vast chamber filled with tactical displays and war trophies from conquered worlds. Commander, Vex said, his exoskeleton gleaming with the red markings of the warrior elite. Tell me about these humans. Tor chose his words carefully. They are physically weak but remarkably adaptable. They respond to threats not with fear but with aggression. And they learn quickly. Vex dismissed this with a wave of his upper arm. All primitive species resist at first. These creatures should have cowered before our might, he said, pacing the room. We will teach them their place in the natural order. Tor tried again. Admiral, I recommend we study them further before. Enough. Vex cut him off. The fleet will move into position around their planet. We will destroy their largest military installations as a demonstration. Then they will surrender, as all others have before them. On Earth, humans weren't surrendering. They were preparing. The Valoran fleet detected massive movements on the planet's surface. Factories switched to weapon production. Military bases buzzed with activity. Civilian ships were converted for battle, all in the span of mere days. Impressive mobilization speed, Mira noted, monitoring the Earth activity from the science station. Most species would take months to organize such a response. Vex ignored this observation. Begin the attack. Target their largest military installations. The Valoran ships fired, their energy weapons cutting through Earth's atmosphere and striking military bases around the planet. The humans responded immediately, launching everything they had: missiles, fighter craft, and orbital weapons platforms that had been hidden from Valoran scans. What should have been a simple intimidation mission turned into chaos. Human ships, vastly outmatched in technology, flew suicide runs against the Valoran vessels. They detonated nuclear weapons at close range, sacrificing themselves to damage the alien ships. They're using their destroyed craft as weapons. Dren reported as another human vessel deliberately crashed into a Valoran ship. They're stuffing their damaged ships with explosives and remote piloting them into our fleet. 3 Valoran warships suffered critical damage from these tactics. The humans had found weak points in Valoran ship design that no enemy had ever exploited before. This is madness. Vex raged as his tactical display showed more human ships approaching. They must know they cannot win. Why don't they surrender? Tor watched the battle unfold with a growing sense of unease. Because, Admiral, they would rather die than be conquered. This is a species that values freedom more than life itself. A massive explosion rocked the Conqueror as a human nuclear submarine, somehow undetected until now, launched its missiles from directly beneath the flagship. All ships, regroup. Vex ordered, his confidence finally shaken. We need to reassess our strategy. As the Valoran fleet pulled back to a higher orbit, Tor stared at the blue planet below. For the first time in his long life, he felt something new when facing an enemy: respect. "What are they?" Vex demanded, his voice quieter now. "They are humans," Tor replied simply, "and I believe we have greatly underestimated them." Admiral Vex paced the command center of the Conqueror *, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The holographic display showed the Valoran fleet in defensive formation above Earth. 3 ships glowed red, indicating severe damage. A 4th was completely dark, destroyed by human attacks. "Impossible," Vex muttered, striking the control panel with his fist. "How can primitive creatures cause such damage to the greatest fleet in the galaxy?" Commander Tor stood quietly, watching the Admiral's anger grow. He had warned Vex about underestimating the humans, but the Admiral hadn't listened. Now they were paying the price. "They're monitoring our communications," Mira reported from her station. "They've already adapted jammers to our frequencies. They're learning our technology at an alarming rate." Vex turned to face his officers. "We have conquered hundreds of worlds with this same force. These humans are nothing special, just clever animals. We will change tactics." The Admiral outlined his new plan: divide the fleet to attack multiple targets simultaneously, forcing the humans to spread their defenses thin. The Valorans would target power plants, communication hubs, and water treatment facilities, not to destroy them completely, but to show humans how vulnerable their civilization was. "Once they see we can take away everything they need to survive, they will surrender," Vex concluded. The Valoran ships spread out around the planet, each targeting critical infrastructure as ordered. Tor commanded a strike group heading for a major power generation complex in what humans called North America. As his ships approached, Tor noticed something strange on his sensors. "The humans are evacuating the facility," he said, "but they're not moving their defensive weapons. Why would they abandon their defenses?" The answer came moments later when the entire power plant exploded with tremendous force. The humans had rigged their own facility to blow, timing it perfectly as the Valoran ships came within range of the blast. "Evasive action," Tor shouted, but it was too late. The shockwave slammed into his ships, damaging 2 beyond repair. Similar reports came in from around the globe. Humans were destroying their own infrastructure rather than letting the Valorans use it as leverage against them. "They fight as if possessed," Dren reported as another Valoran cruiser fell to human kamikaze attacks. "They've destroyed ships crewed by our finest warriors using little more than primitive fusion drives and determination." Back on the Conqueror *, Vex was speechless as the reports flooded in. The humans had sacrificed their own resources, destroying what had taken them decades to build, all to damage the Valoran fleet. "They should be begging for mercy by now," he said. "No species has ever continued fighting after seeing our full strength." Tor had been studying human transmissions. "Admiral, I believe I understand their thinking now. They have a concept they call freedom. To humans, being conquered is worse than death. They would rather destroy everything they've built than let us control them." Vex struggled to comprehend this. Valoran warriors valued their lives. Each had centuries of experience and knowledge that would be lost in death. The idea of sacrificing oneself was not honorable in their culture. It was wasteful. "Recall all ships," Vex finally ordered. "We need a new approach." As the Valoran fleet regrouped at a safe distance from Earth, Admiral Vex faced an unfamiliar situation. For the first time in the history of the Valoran Empire, a military campaign had resulted not in victory, not even in defeat, but in something entirely unexpected: a stalemate. "What do we do now?" asked one of Vex's officers. The Admiral stared at the blue planet on the view screen. "We study them," he said quietly. "We need to understand what makes these humans so different from every other species we've encountered." Tor nodded in agreement. Perhaps now the Valorans would finally learn that true strength took many forms, and the humans seemed to possess forms of strength the Valorans had never imagined. Science Officer Mira stood before the High Council, her slender form dwarfed by the massive chamber. Behind her, a large screen displayed images of human history. The councilors watched with growing unease as scenes of human warfare played out before them. These recordings span only the last 300 years of human development, Mira explained. In this brief time, they have fought 2 global wars, developed and used atomic weapons, and created enough explosive power to destroy their own planet many times over. The head counselor leaned forward. You mean to say these creatures have spent their entire civilization at war with themselves? Yes, Mira answered. While we advanced through careful planning over millennia, humans developed rapidly through constant conflict. Their technology evolves not through patient research as ours does, but through the pressing needs of warfare. Commander Tor stepped forward to stand beside Mira. This explains their response to our arrival. To us, war is rare, a last resort used only when necessary. To humans, war is normal. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The Valorans had encountered a species that had essentially been preparing for this conflict for their entire history, without even knowing it. There's more, Mira continued. Humans have biological advantages we didn't recognize at first. Their soft bodies, which we saw as weakness, allow them to survive injuries that would kill a Valoran. Their bones can break and heal. Their skin can tear and regrow. She displayed medical scans of injured humans. A Valoran with a cracked exoskeleton would be permanently damaged. Humans simply repair themselves over time. Their short lifespans, which we viewed as another weakness, actually create strength through rapid adaptation and evolution. Admiral Vex, who had been silent until now, spoke up. This is all very interesting, but how does it help us defeat them? Mira glanced at Tor before responding. That's the paradox, Admiral. The more we study humans, the more we question whether defeating them, in the traditional sense, is possible. She displayed a final set of images, humans helping each other after disasters, rebuilding cities destroyed in wars, caring for their young and elderly. They are physically weak, yet they've turned this weakness into strength by developing tools and technologies specifically to amplify their capabilities. They are individually vulnerable, yet collectively resilient in ways we cannot comprehend. The High Council sat in stunned silence. Everything they had believed about strength and power was being challenged by these strange creatures from the unremarkable yellow star. I have studied thousands of species across our empire, Mira concluded. None have shown this particular combination of traits. Humans are at once the most destructive and most creative species we have encountered. They show both extreme cruelty and remarkable compassion. They fight among themselves constantly, yet unite instantly against outside threats. Tor added, we have always defined strength by our exoskeletons, by our advanced technology, by our long lives and careful planning. Humans have none of these advantages, yet they have fought us to a standstill. The head counselor rose slowly from his seat. Then what do you suggest we do, Commander? Continue to fight, and we may eventually win through sheer numbers, Tor replied. But the cost would be enormous. Humans do not surrender easily. They would rather die fighting than live under rule they didn't choose. There is another option, Mira said quietly. Something the Valoran Empire has never done before. And what is that? The head counselor asked. Negotiate, Mira answered. Not as conquerors, but as equals. A wave of outrage swept through the council chamber. The idea was unthinkable. For millennia, the Valorans had been the undisputed masters of all they encountered. To treat humans as equals would challenge the very foundation of their empire. Yet as the debate raged on, Tor found himself wondering if perhaps this was the true test of strength, not the ability to conquer, but the wisdom to know when not to. 6 months passed. The conflict between Valorans and humans had settled into a grim war of attrition. The High Council, unable to accept negotiation but unwilling to commit the resources needed for total victory, had ordered a blockade of Earth, while sending regular attacks to wear down human resistance. Commander Tor now led the frontline forces. His ship hovered above what had once been a major human city. Below, the ruins smoked and burned, yet from underground bunkers, humans continued to fight back with missiles and makeshift weapons. "They should have surrendered months ago," said Dren, watching the tactical display. "We've destroyed their largest cities, blocked their access to space. Any rational species would have given up." Tor had come to expect the unexpected from humans. They're not fighting with logic. They're fighting with something else. The Valorans had captured thousands of human prisoners during the conflict. Despite harsh conditions, the humans organized themselves, shared resources, and even attempted numerous escapes. When questioned, they revealed a disturbing fact. Human history was filled with stories of resistance against overwhelming odds. They have myths, religions, and histories that prepare them mentally for this exact scenario, Mira explained during her latest report. They'd been telling themselves stories about defeating powerful invaders for their entire existence. Even more troubling to the Valorans was what they saw in human medical facilities. Tor visited one such captured hospital and watched in disbelief as humans continued working despite injuries that would incapacitate a Valoran warrior. "They endure pain that would drive our kind to madness," he reported to Admiral Vex. "I saw a human doctor performing surgery despite having a broken arm. When I asked why he didn't rest, he said simply, 'Others need me more.'" The most shocking discovery came when Valorans captured a human outpost and found children being trained as future soldiers. The concept of raising young specifically for warfare was alien to the Valorans, who took decades to raise each carefully planned offspring. Their reproductive strategy alone makes them nearly impossible to defeat conventionally, Mira explained to the Council during her monthly update. "While we might produce one new Valoran warrior every 50 years, humans can replace their losses in a single generation, and they're accelerating their reproduction rates because of the war." The Council was deeply troubled by these reports. The war was becoming increasingly costly, with no end in sight. 7 Valoran warships had been lost, more than in the previous 1,000 years of Valoran history combined. "What about our technological advantage?" asked one counselor. "Surely they cannot match our science." "That is perhaps the most concerning development," Mira replied. "Humans have already reverse-engineered several pieces of our technology from crashed ships. Their rate of technological advancement has increased tenfold since the conflict began. If this continues, they may reach our level in decades rather than centuries." Back on the front lines, Tor received an urgent message. A human resistance fighter had been captured with strange documents. When translated, they revealed plans for a new weapon, one that targeted the specific frequency of Valoran communication systems. "They're not just trying to survive anymore," Tor told his officers after reviewing the plans. "They're planning to take the fight to our homeworld." That night, Tor stood alone on the observation deck of his ship, watching Earth's lights glimmer through breaks in the clouds. Despite the devastation, human cities were being rebuilt underground. In mountains, beneath the seas, anywhere they could hide from Valoran sensors. What drives them? He wondered aloud. What gives such fragile creatures such unbendable will? As if in answer, his communication officer called him to the bridge. A human transmission had been detected, broadcasting on all frequencies, seemingly unconcerned that the Valorans would hear it. It was music, a simple, powerful melody accompanied by words about standing together, about fighting on no matter the cost, about never surrendering even in the darkest hour. And all across the planet, despite their suffering, humans were listening and finding hope. 2 years into the conflict, both sides had reached their breaking point. The Valoran Empire, for the first time in its history, faced serious resource shortages. 7 major warships had been lost, along with thousands of warriors who had centuries of experience. The humans had suffered far greater losses in terms of numbers, but their spirit remained unbroken. On the bridge of his ship, Commander Tor received a message that he never expected to hear. The High Council was offering peace. Not surrender, the head counselor clarified in the transmission. A true peace treaty. We will recognize Earth's independence if they agree to certain terms. Tor could hardly believe it. In thousands of years of expansion, the Valoran Empire had never offered peace to another species. They had always demanded total submission. Commander Tor, the head counselor continued, you will lead the diplomatic team. You understand these humans better than any of us. 3 days later, Tor found himself in a strange position, sitting across from human leaders in a neutral location, the damaged International Space Station they had rebuilt specifically for this meeting. The human delegation was led by a woman with dark skin and graying hair. She walked with a slight limp, an injury from an early battle, Tor learned. Yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. We did not want this war, she said simply, but we will not surrender our freedom. Ever. Tor nodded. We have learned this about your kind. It is admirable. The negotiations lasted for days. The Valorans requested access to certain resources and knowledge exchange. The humans demanded guarantees of independence and assistance rebuilding their devastated world. Neither side fully trusted the other, but both recognized that continuing the war would lead to mutual destruction. Your weapons improved too quickly, Tor admitted during a private conversation with the human leader. And your willingness to sacrifice for victory exceeds our understanding. The woman smiled. And your technology is still superior to ours in many ways. This war could continue for decades, with terrible losses on both sides. Finally, after tense negotiations, the peace treaty was signed. As Tor pressed his claw into the document next to the human's signature, he felt strangely humbled. We knew strength as dominance, as physical might, and technological superiority. Tor reflected later as he watched humans and Valorans beginning tentative cooperation efforts. But humans showed us strength exists in many forms. In resilience, in adaptation, in their strange ability to turn vulnerability into advantage. In the months that followed, the Valoran Empire began to change. Ideas from Earth spread through their territories. Concepts of freedom, of self-determination, of rights that belong to all thinking beings regardless of their place in the natural order. Many older Valorans resisted these changes, but the younger generation embraced them. Stories of human courage against overwhelming odds became popular throughout the Empire. Some Valoran scientists even began studying human biology, fascinated by their adaptability and resilience. 1 year after the peace treaty, Tor visited Earth again, not as a conqueror, but as an ambassador. He watched human cities being rebuilt with Valoran technology, stronger than before. In one such city, he visited a school where human and Valoran children were brought together in a cultural exchange program. In the playground, he saw something remarkable: a Valoran child and a human child playing together. The Valoran child carefully restrained its natural strength, while the human taught it a game requiring creativity and strategic thinking. Mira, who had accompanied Tor on this visit, observed the scene with interest. Perhaps, she said thoughtfully, true strength lies not in conquest, but in the ability to change. Tor nodded. We came to conquer a species we thought was weak. Instead, we found strength we never knew existed. As they watched the children play together, one with an armored exoskeleton and 4 powerful arms, the other with a soft, vulnerable body, but bright, innovative mind, Tor understood at last. The greatest strength of all was not in dominating others, but in finding ways to grow together. The Valoran Empire would never be the same again. And for that, Tor was grateful.